Hello, everybody, and welcome back. As I promised, we have the next interview. I have with us now a rock star, someone that just got off the stage and presented the opening keynote here at Automation Star 2024 and on a world tour. Our amigo Jonathon Wright. Jonathon, amigo, how are you?
It's great to be here. It's great to be on the show again, amigo. It's kind of like I love this show. Wherever we are. I know we were in California a couple of weeks ago. Best interviews, speaking to the best people, the good questions. Love it. Great to be here. Automation Star. Wow, I couldn't believe it. 8:30 keynote. It filled up. It was just incredible. So much energy here. Largest automation conference in the world. Great to be here. Great to have people like Dorothy, after 300 keynotes, coming on stage, 50 years in test automation.
Still going strong. And
Going strong.
I remember that when I met her, we are supposed to be talking about you, but just a quick one with Dot. She's a legend, Dot Graham, legend and testing, 50 plus years in the realm. I remember she was showing us some punch cards of what were the actual bugs that she was finding on those days. And I always make a little bit fun of her because every time I see her, she's retiring. This is the last talk, and this is the last talk. I'm happy that she keeps going because her presentations are full of knowledge, wisdom, of course. I enjoy them so much.
Yeah.
But again, we're not here to talk about her. Great presenter. I very much look forward to having her interviewed soon, someday. But this is your stage right now, and there might be some people that dare to not to know who is Jonathon Wright. Would you mind sharing a little bit who you are? What do you do? Why are you special?
Well, yeah, special, very special, or fun, crazy. I think actually the origin story goes into Dot, right? When I started in the 90s doing automation, Dorothy's book, the software test automation book, was my Bible, right? And it was very hard those days. It was a gotta wanna win environment where there was news groups. It wasn't really the same amount of information, didn't have the same level of community. That's what kind of
had to buy books.
You had to buy books,
not
right?
blogs or anything like that.
So part of it was hard, right? It was hard for the community, and it was different times. Whereas now you can subscribe to your podcast, your channel, and you get all the latest information. Back then, you had to wait for someone to reply on a news group, right? So part of it is it was hard, and automation was, I'm going to say, relatively new. We credit Dorothy, 1970, to Bell Labs, the first person to ever write any automation code. But 25 years later, I started with my mentor, a guy called Dave Dabosky, and also Dorothy stepping in as well. He'd been doing it for 15, 20 years, right? He'd been doing automation. And looking at automation today compared to 25 years ago, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And that's interesting on one side. And I was joking to you on the keynote about the fact that some of the capabilities in performance, were there 15 years ago. And again, we feel like, why aren't we leveraging all this open telemetry and all this great information, these great tools that we've got? And I think part of it is it's an engineering capability. You build a profession, right? And I would like to say that, I've been an automation engineer for 4 decades now. And what I've learned over the time is I've never stopped learning, right? And I have to come to conferences. I have to talk to people about their experiences because everyone's different. Every organization's different. And there's no one tool. There's no one right methodology. We have to keep on evolving as we go along. And this is why these events are so important. But also then looking into the future, if someone said to me, and Dot said it in a keynote yesterday, was like, well, what will it look like in 5 years, 10 years, 25 years? The technology advancements are exponential now. And I'm not talking about Gen AI here. I'm talking about large action models and the next generation.
All the new technologies, new methodologies. We were hearing about robot framework, which I was like, wow, that's a new one that I think in 2018 was a rage. Everyone, robot framework, this robot still around. Now the new web drivers that are coming, all the changes, new tools, new technologies, new ways of testing. Because I heard also like some new automated AI testing for AI, because you need some other new features. I'm sure that you keep learning and going over that.
Absolutely, and like we just said, Dreamforce, Salesforce launched their XLAM open source libraries, which is the large action models, which is going to revolutionize our industry. It's in essence all the tool vendors that we see behind will just disappear because part of it is.
Or they will evolve, I think.
Well, they'll probably evolve, but it's already built into the underlying system. So it's interesting, and kind of what I was going through on my presentation is what visualization of thought is, and it's built. This is what Sam's been doing at OpenAI. He's been hiring all these automation engineers because he's realized that large language models is just text to text, right? And yes, the Omni kind of capabilities, voice to text, but still very basic. They want to take that and make it into actions, right? And the idea with an action is what we would have classed as automation.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is it's goal orientated. It's a higher level of abstraction. So for instance, Salesforce, your Salesforce implementation is different to somebody else's one. So it needs to look at the APIs. It needs to look at the underlying schemas and then say, well, I'm at a high level saying, set me a new account, and that new account needs to be allocated to you. Part of it goes, okay, user access rights, business customizations that are on there. It's going to drive it. It's going to automatically do the two-factor authentication and look at the phone. Maybe that is Appium. We don't know. But then it's also going to log in, create all the accounts. So in front of you, it's just going to start taking over the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really exciting because what it's using is technologies like YOLO, where you only look once, where it's looking at the screen and saying, what's the current state? And going, well, I don't see Edge. I'm on an Ubuntu Kali install. I see Firefox. Okay, I'm going to use Firefox.
Like a blink.
Exactly. It's understanding that it doesn't need to launch browser, do something step A, step B. It's not linear anymore. It's evolving as things move across. Oh, there's no network connectivity because we're in, a conference. Oh, I'll just connect to the Wi-Fi. This basic functionality that it needs to be able to learn around.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's going into there, it's learning a new system. So like a product, it goes and learns the documentation and reads it in and understands the diagrams that are in it, uses large vision models to say, oh, okay, so to set up a new account, I need to go through this flow. So part of it is these systems are learning, and it's going to revolutionize automation, but it's going to, again, it's human augmentation. It's helping power humans to do more.
I always bring a little bit. I'm guessing you're familiar with Captain America, the Super Soldier Serum.
Which I was in the movie, right? So I was an extra in the original Captain America.
No, were you?
Yes, I'm in the POW camp, and I wave over my gesture and say, come over here, and they unlock when they're breaking out his friends.
Oh my God, you're going to make me watch it again.
And
okay, we will follow up and put a timer like, hey, open the movie in this second and check for this guy. I had no idea. Wow. I was bringing something different because cool, good for you, man. So the deal with the Super Serum in the Captain America is that it augmentates.
Yeah.
And with the evil one got eviler and the good one got better. So I think that also is a risk with us.
Yes.
Something that, and I came prepared with a trick question from yesterday. There were some AI tutorials happening, lots of people happy. And one of them came to me like, hey, the tutorial helped me even like with performance testing things. And I'm like, the AI is wrong there.
Yeah. 100%.
Right away. And it's because of where did it pull the data from and how it was trained. So my question, and I'll tell you, or maybe you can try to guess what was the mistake that I noticed. What would you say would be a good strategy for us to stay up to these biases, these things that the AI gets from us, and can even like potentiate those biases and kind of make even things even bigger? Have you noticed any of that? Or?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, part of it is, all right, let's just take a standard scenario, right? And I said this the other day when I was talking to Alon. So Alon created BlazeMeter, and he was one of the second biggest contributors for the JMeter standard, right? And I love Taurus. Taurus is like my favorite platform of all time, right? And so if I'm writing, that it's free, by the way, everyone. So go and download.
Open source software, free. Check it out.
Get Taurus, right? And it's based on JMeter, right? And so part of it is there's a YAML where you can start structure in there. You can talk about your volumetrics or all the other kind of great stuff, which you would do. Sometimes was a bit more difficult with the JMeter. If you were doing it by hand and you wanted to make sure you were using
JMeter by hand, that's ugly.
that is really ugly, right? But part of it is if you said to it, okay, well, create me, I don't know, a JMeter scenario for something like this, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of information because large language models aren't magic. They are just in essence the internet. And so to me, I don't like talking about large language models. And I don't talk about prompt engineering. This was the discussion we had the other week. Prompting is probably not the way forward. But retrieval augmented generation, feeding it relevant information in and then focusing. So you would have a fine-tuned, which there is available on Hugging Face, a fine-tuned JMeter large language model variant. It'll be about 1.6 billion. It'll be really small, but all it does is create JMeter. It doesn't, because the internet is a big place and it's the tail wagging the dog. It, in essence, like you would do if you were Googling it, find the first 2 or 3 ones. They're probably incorrect. They're based on the human input. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you tune a model, you tune it typically against a graph where you've gone through, in essence, it's supervised learning. You've kind of said, this is the relationship between the volumetrics and the output. This is how the time series data, this is how the influx database, InfluxDB works. This is how and so it suddenly starts understanding the language.
But based on the information available out there.
Just about.
And you have a very good point because there's this bias. JMeter is the most popular load testing tool in the market. And when you put whatever related to performance, JMeter this, JMeter that, there are a few others there, but the model right now is biased because of the information that it finds. Do you guess what was the mistake that I noticed? I like this.
Well, it would have been on
a tough one.
It would have been on the setup, right? Part of it would have been how it's been configured. Like the only time legitimately I've made a mistake in load testing was, if you remember Load UI, it was not a great product. No offense to the people, but part of it was they simplified it. There was a dial to turn it up. It was what I would have classed as a load injection tool, right? And I had one of my engineers made a mistake, configured it to just hit really hard, bit spiky, spike testing, and we brought down the system. And I was like, well, that's fine. We had lots of load injectors. That seems to be okay. However, it was on shared architecture with the production system. So in essence, the same area. So we brought down production at the same time. Now, no schematic told me that if we hit this endpoint, it was on shared hardware and it would bring down the system. However, I felt like we were very, unprofessional by the fact that we didn't review this. We
started slamming right away.
We went to the normal thing of just like, oh, well, let's hit it hard. And that's not performance engineering, right? We know the Performance Advisory Council where we're doing is I gave the example of PAL, the Performance Application Lifecycle Management tool, which, Load Runner introduced in the 90s. You could feed JBoss logs in and say, well, this is what my volumetrics look like. And that would start you on a bit of a journey so you could model it better. Whereas if you just go with ramping up 2 VUs, whatever, so often, it's not realistic, right? It's not.
So there, all these pictures that you are painting, you are mentioning too many performance practices, specialties that are around. And I don't know if you have heard my rant, that my most common quote, but performance testing is not the same as load testing.
Exactly, yeah.
Please go. You are a very good magnifier of phrases. You heard it here, and go and tell the world because you're very good at doing that.
Yep.
So based on this premise, there are so many other things that you should be doing before load testing, and aside of load testing is not the only thing. But that's also why the tools are Load Runner, NeoLoad, something load.
Yep.
And when this person asked the AI, give me a good performance testing strategy, what do you think the AI started to say?
You would never do that. Again, this is the problem. It goes back to James Whittaker in the 90s when he was at the FBI doing test plans and test strategies for projects. It's like,
but those were load test plans,
exactly.
Not performance in general.
Excellent, absolutely.
You were mentioning the model that James and Scott are presenting, that it scales for one performance for one person. That's the most important.
And that's
step.
what we're working on right now. But give credit to some of it. So over your shoulder, right? massive credit to the open text people. So they've created a product called Aviator. I don't know if you've seen it, but what I love about Aviator is when you're in the load runner analysis page and you're trying to, it's contextually understanding the results you're analyzing. And then you say, well, we know that's the whole point. 95 percentile hides a magnitude of outliers. You want to go, well, I want to see that information. I will pull that down. What's interesting about this versus the last run? It's starting to bring in that area, open telemetry, all the other stuff where you can start pulling in vast information, the big picture. And that's what you need as an engineer. And I think that's your point, is that load testing and maybe non-functional testing, when you think of just performance, is this is an engineering skill. Now, no one can know everything. So having an assistant, an AI agent that's able to bring information, anomalies to you to say, is this of interest? And you have the base skills and knowledge to say, actually, this looks unusual.
Yeah, because when I was seeing the information from the AI right away, like, yeah, load test this, load test that. Like, why are you jumping straight into that? Because, as you say, the whole internet, the whole market is with load.
Yeah.
And that's the first step that I love that you mentioned, the holistic picture, putting observability, open telemetry here, there, monitoring there. No one pays attention. What was the saying in The Simpsons? Can someone think of the children or something like that? Someone think of the web browsers, performance on the web browser. That's also important. How many tabs can you open of your application in a Chrome browser without your computer crashing or being dead? That's poor performance. But I think I pulled this interview into too much of the realm of performance, and maybe people want to know about some other things. What would you say? Yeah, putting performance aside, what's the key takeaway from your keynote that people? I mean, I was there. I had my own, but which one do you think, like, I wish that the people would have learned this and get away with this?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because, I think it's too noisy, the AI stuff at the moment, right? It's just, and everyone's talking about the good. They're all, there's a lot of hype. I think the use cases are narrow. It's not going to solve all your problems. And like you said, and you kind of alluded to, is that actually it's going to amplify you as a tester. So if you're great at thinking outside the box and being critical systems thinking, you're just going to get even better, right? But you need some foundational operational parameters for this to be a success. You can't just one-shot something and expect a JMeter scenario or something that's really useful out of it. And this is the warning that comes with this product, which should come on the product, is that actually it's evolving so quickly that, this is the discussion last 2 weeks ago in California was, is prompt engineering the right way? And the answer is no. And is the technology going to evolve that actually makes some of the practices and principles that we're promoting today less and less relevant? And so my viewpoint would be to you is your time's precious. You want to learn foundationally about this. You don't want to miss out. The big takeaway of you won't be replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by somebody else using AI.
That's a good one.
It's a good line, but and it's not my quote, unfortunately. But part of it was when I was at Google DeepMind. But the idea is that you need to find out what helps you. So if you're doing load and you want a load of synthetic data to inject into your system, then you might be able to create something that's really useful for you. But you need to understand where it's going to benefit you. Or it might be your strengths isn't in reporting. And actually, JMeter notoriously was never great at creating reports. If you want to get it in a certain format, you just give it all of the output and say, generate a report. There is use cases that are valid. There's use cases that are invalid, like write me a performance scenario, right? And I think this is what we've got to do, is we've got to slow back down. And people like Michael next week in Portland, are going to talk about the risks, right? And I completely agree that hallucinations aren't where they were a year ago. The technology is still evolving, but it's still early days. And I think that's the thing, is you've got to beware. You've got to not see through the hype. Everything doesn't have to be AI powered. AI powered really doesn't mean anything. We joke that 7 years ago we put in essence generative technologies into our product. It was TensorFlow, but it still generated tests. And we're like, well, people didn't like it when we had that originally because they were, well, I want it to be explainable AI. And I think that's the key, is if you can't explain it, then you should not be using it, right? And so it could be quite dangerous because if you read it, it feels like it's right, it looks right, but then an expert like yourself puts that over and went straight away, that's wrong. Yeah. And part of it is, I think the risk is that it fools us enough, and then we put our name, our stamp against it, and then we're like, well, actually, I got GPT. Well, should you have been using GPT with sensitive information, which is proprietary to the company, to a public? No, you shouldn't. It gets you in a whole stack of trouble. So I think you've got to be sensible. You've got to be ethical with this. You've got to make sure that what you're doing is trustworthy, that you ensure what you're doing is you're peer reviewing, you're checking what's coming through. This isn't you becoming a superhero. You aren't going to become Captain America. You're going to become part of the Avengers. And that's why
I like the analogy.
That's the thing. And
different powers
mixing together that complement each other. And this is what Jason was saying at the end of his keynote was, you need to get there before the BAs, the developers are all using Cursor now, and the BAs are using it. All the other parts of the business are starting to use it. They're accelerating their productivity. Mm-hmm. You need to keep up with everybody else and in this new digital era, but don't rely on the AI. And I think that's the big takeaway from that. Is your skills going to go away? Absolutely not. And this is the other big thing you've got to realize. If you're in healthcare or you're in financial services and you're a performance engineer or a security engineer or an automation engineer, your job is not going away. You need to have those specialist skills, but you also need the domain and contextual skills that your industry and you know what to look for. Knowledge is not wisdom, and wisdom is a human trait, and your years of experience are incredibly valuable, and don't think they're ever going to be replaced by an AI, because they're not. So that's the key takeaway, I think, from the entire session.
I love the. Give me just a second. I just noticed a small situation. I think the point of being potentiated and based on your skills that you already have, because I love that perspective of don't be afraid to be replaced. If any, what you already know, what you already can do is going to be boosted. And beware, because if someone else knows a bit better than you some of those things, they are going to be boosted more than you. And yeah, this is a little like the levels and I was seeing a news article of, even if you have access to the ChatGPT that is of a higher intensity than I only have the free one, and you have the 4.0 version, you may be boosted even higher. And some of those differences are really important, but everything departs from your own capabilities. Something that I enjoyed from your keynote is that you were bringing examples of AI, not only large language models, because you were involved into it before it was cool. You, Jason, Tariq, you guys were deep into it. And I remember that when those talks were presented at conferences a few years before Sam Altman came with ChatGPT, there were a few people in the room like, those weirdos interested on the woo-woo things in IT. And the point that you made, that it became accessible, I always do the example of mobile smartphones. I had smartphones and I used them heavily before the iPhone. But what the iPhone did, I think, is what Sam Altman did with ChatGPT, bring it to the masses. And that the people are taking advantage of this, and everybody like with their specialties. And I think the other one that you mentioned that was cool, all these connections that you can do in between skill sets, abilities, and new ones. I have, you said, right, managing, I don't know, hospitals, healthcare, mix them up and give me a little bit of QA, and then you become a super QA engineer, right? Super Avenger QA engineer. I don't know. That's a very cool perspective. I love it. Thank you so much, and it was an awesome keynote. Thank you for the call up. I was surprised about your eyesight. Like, yeah, so your performer there in the back, like, whoa, is he wearing a telescope or something? It's Cool.
Automation Cyborg, that's what it is. But it's been a pleasure, honestly. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Speaking of the next one, what's coming up next for you? I know that you are also on a tour.
Yeah, so tonight I'm speaking in the O2 Arena. Thankfully, not singing, doing.
I saw that you did dancing as well.
I avoided dancing today, but I did enjoy the coming out. The energy was just so high. But obviously, flying to Portland, Jason,
PNSQC.
Tariq, Michael Bolton, the whole band will be there. You were there last
so
year.
Sad that I'm gonna miss that.
He was the one that was stuck in the middle, and we got an Uber going down for some street food.
Yeah.
And then I fly over, fingers crossed, to Florida for the Star Agile DevOps.
I hope that things are well, because
I'm hoping, it's downgraded to a 3, sending us out to everybody who's affected by that at the moment. But I hope to see everyone there. And then, of course, I'm then flying back to Lithuania and then continuing the journey. So it's 6 weeks. Conference season started, 54th event. Keep on going.
Wow.
Keep on doing the momentum. Keep on learning, and make sure you get to these events, right? In person, connecting to new people, sharing experiences. Remember to submit. Also, to subscribe to your Perf Bites, all of the other great content, because, never stop learning.
Yeah, we're not the only ones. There are so many other people. Jason also creates a good amount of content, shares the presentations. And the thing is, not only, I love that you said, come to these events, because sometimes it's the only way that you're going to be in front of there, seeing a video of this guy dancing. I look forward to some keynote that you dance again. That looked fun. I'm like, cool. I'm taking notes. Some, there's no mariachi dancing, but I'll see what I can do. But yeah, you get some inspiration from these great people that you are going to be able to meet. Probably you end up locked up in a car going for some food truck park, sitting not in the middle seat. There was a floor, and the Uber driver was like, "Yeah, sure, if you can sit in the floor." I'm like, "Yeah, let's go, whatever."
But you don't want FOMO. You don't want FOMO of missing those opportunities, because that's what people do well. Get together, share stories, make new connections.
Knowledge.
So important.
Those new perspectives that you're going to get, and all the learnings that you're going to experience, it's incredible. But our amigo Jonathan, I am rushing a little bit because I don't want him to miss his flight, because he has to really get off.
2.5 hours.
Wow, yeah, he really needs to run. PNSQC, I don't want these amigos to, that he comes and like, I got here late because of Señor Perfor. No. No, nothing. And if any, I look forward to seeing the friends at PNSQC next year. But yeah, things happen. I couldn't go. But, amigo Jonathan, where can people stay up, keep up with all the things that you're doing, follow your adventures, and hear of your learnings, or write you a note?
Oh, yeah. So you can always reach out to me. LinkedIn.com/in-automation. It's an old username, Automation Star. So automation. I do the Vancouver-based QA Lead podcast. It's about 60 odd episodes in. I'm now pivoting, so I'm going to do a podcast with Jason. So that's coming new.
Oh.
You heard it first on this show. We're going to do a podcast series. So, but of course, reach out. Me at Jonathon.ai. We'll go straight to my AI and eventually get to me. So yeah, reach out. Always happy to help. So and thank you so much, amigo, for
it's always a
amazing
pleasure. I love
session.
always these crazy conversations. Somehow they always get crazy with this man, and like I love it. Madness. So check out. There are links down here to his LinkedIn. Many of the others that he just mentioned, we will try to add them later. Stay in touch. Send him a note. Look for the podcast, and say hi to Jason as well when you see him, and all the other guys I look forward to. So that was our amigo Jonathon Wright, awesome presenter, conference tourer, or world trotter. I don't know.
World tour, yeah, world tour. We'll call it world tour.
And well, stay tuned, because this is Automation Star 2024. It hasn't finished yet. We're having still one more interview, one more adventure, because I need to cut it up, because I have also my talk later today, and busy, But stay tuned. Amigo Jonathan, gracias. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And yeah, until I see you next at the next event,
which
coming
might
soon.
Be, stay tuned. The event next door in your city. This guy can appear and pop up. It's crazy. Okay. Take care, everybody. Adios. Adios, Jonathan.
Adios.
Take care. And we'll be back in a minute. Adios.